In the latest episode of our podcast, Into the Killing, we examine a strange murder that happened in 1980. For over a decade, the police had no idea that the murder even happened. The only reason the case was solved was because a special agent with California's Department of Justice got a bad feeling about a man he was investigating. You can find Into the Killing on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and anywhere you find your favorite podcasts. Before we get into today's video, we're just going to take a few moments to talk about our wonderful sponsor, Magellan TV. I've been a big fan of Magellan TV for a long time now because it's the best place to find documentaries. Magellan TV wants to show their appreciation for criminally listed viewers. They are offering the documentary The Real Sherlock Holmes for free view for the next 7 days. That means even if you don't have a Magellan TV membership, you can stream the documentary for free from September 30th to October 7th. I personally think you'll really enjoy The Real Sherlock Holmes. It's a fascinating examination of how the character Sherlock Holmes has influenced real life. This just doesn't include the world of criminology, but he also influenced espionage and even space travel. You should check out The Real Sherlock Holmes on Magellan TV because it'll be absolutely free for the next 7 days. You can find a link to the documentary in the description box. The Real Sherlock Holmes is just one of 3,000 documentaries in the Magellan TV library. Plus, 15 to 20 hours of new material is being added every week, so there's always something new to watch. Magellan TV has an amazing offer for criminally listed viewers. Just go to try.magellantv.com/criminally listed to get a month for free. So within the next 7 days, please check out The Real Sherlock Holmes for free, and also look around the rest of Magellan TV. You'll find something great to watch. Number 3. Bernard Rusness and Peggy McKay. In April 1976, Bernard Rusness and Peggy McKay were living near Wolf Lake, Minnesota with their young son, 8-year-old Brian. Even though they told people they were married, they never legally wed. That was because Bernard never divorced his first wife. The couple worked for a car dealership in Fargo, North Dakota, and they made the 140-mile round trip every weekday. The house they lived in formerly belonged to Peggy's mother. 2 years earlier, Peggy's mother became ill and Peggy moved in to help her. Bernard would visit on the weekends. Then in 1975, Peggy's mother died and Bernard and Brian moved in. They had the house remodeled. The renovations were finished in spring 1976. The family generally kept to themselves and didn't socialize much. On April 3, 1976, 48-year-old Bernard, 41-year-old Peggy, and 8-year-old Brian were seen at the local grocery store. Around 4 p.m., Bernard was seen at home leveling out their driveway with his tractor. Sometime between 11:30 p.m. and midnight, the closest neighbor of the family drove by their house. He saw that it was engulfed in flames. The fire department was called and they arrived minutes later. But by then it was too late. The fire was raging and the house completely burned down. In the wreckage, investigators found the remains of 8-year-old Brian. It appeared he had been in his bedroom when the fire started. They also found the remains of the family's 2 dogs. But the remains of Bernard and Peggy were not in the ruins. The area around the house was searched, and the bodies of Bernard and Peggy were not found. The fire marshal was sure that the couple did not die in the fire. But if they didn't die in the fire, where did they go? One theory is that the couple killed their son, torched the house, and then fled. Some people thought that they went to Canada. Other people think that they were involved in a religious cult that was supposedly operating in the area. What is notable is that no remnants of their clothes or suitcases, like belt buckles or hinges, were found in the ruins. But there are problems with the theories regarding Bernard and Peggy killing Brian, burning down their own house, and running away. The first is that all 3 of the family's vehicles were still there. So, how did they leave the property? The hood of one of the cars was open because Bernard was installing a sound system in it. People believe that this suggests that Bernard wasn't planning on leaving because he still had work to do on the car. Bernard and Peggy had about $1,000 in their bank accounts and it was left untouched. If they were planning on running away, it probably would have helped to take their money. Many people do not think that they would have set their house on fire because they had just finished renovating it. People also don't believe that Bernard and Peggy would have killed Brian. Peggy was described as a doting and overprotective mother. As for the religious cult, people who were close to them said that there was no way that they were involved in one. Also, a cow with its throat slit was found near their home, but there was no other evidence that a cult was operating in the area. Finally, Bernard and Peggy had no reason to run away from their lives. Another possibility is that they were kidnapped and then their house was torched. But the police couldn't figure out who would want to kidnap the couple. Also, if they were kidnapped, what happened to them? If they were killed, what happened to their bodies? 7 years after the fire, family members of the couple were interviewed. They said that they believed that Bernard and Peggy were dead, or else they would have heard from them. But as to what happened to them, they don't know. It's been 45 years since Bernard Rusness and Peggy McKay went missing. If they are still alive today, Bernard would be 95 years old and Peggy would be 86. Number 2. Marry Rico. In the spring of 1992, 50-year-old Mary Elizabeth Rico was living alone in Oceanside, California. Rico was divorced and she wasn't working. She had worked for the Oceanside Unified School District. She was an instructional aide at Mission Elementary School, where she helped bilingual teachers with their classes. But in the spring of 1992, she was on disability leave pending retirement. On April 2nd, 1992, a friend of Rico showed up at her home. They had planned on going on a ski trip together. Her friend found the front door open, but Rico was nowhere to be found. She found her purse with her ID, money, and credit cards on her bed. Rico had a favorite niece, and that niece was getting married on April 11th, 1992. Rico had even helped plan the wedding. But Rico didn't show up for the wedding. Her family thought that this was incredibly troubling. Her son went to her house and found some disturbing things. The back patio door was smashed. On her bed was some blood. The phone line outside the house had been cut. The bridal slip that Rico planned on giving her niece was laid out on an ironing table. Rico's family reported her missing on April 20th. The police believe that the last time Rico was seen alive was on the morning of April 2nd, before her friend came to get her for the ski trip. That morning, Rico had gone to a grocery store named Ralph's that was less than a mile from her home. A credit card receipt from the store that Rico had signed was found. One problem with the blood on the bed was that Rico wasn't the best housekeeper, so it was hard to tell when the blood got there. But the police found no evidence that Rico chose to leave her home on her own volition. Inside the home was her purse with all her money, credit cards, and identification, as was her luggage, and both her cars were parked in the garage. Rico's friend and the family said that they didn't think she was planning on running away and she wasn't depressed. For years, no one heard from Mary Rico. Her house was eventually condemned. Then something strange happened in February 1994, nearly 2 years after Mary Rico vanished. 67-year-old Margaret Yosa worked with Mary Rico at the same school. They both had the same job. They were instructional aides. Yosa and Rico knew each other. They lived less than a mile from each other. On February 15th, 1994, Yosa, who was a widow, dropped off her granddaughter at a dance studio. She then went grocery shopping at Ralph's. It was the same grocery store where Mary Rico shopped on the last day she was seen alive. That night, Yosa didn't pick up her granddaughter from the dance studio. Her family was notified that she didn't show up. Yosa's family immediately started searching for her. Hours later, at about 3 a.m., they found her car in the parking lot of Ralph's grocery store. They called the police and 2 officers responded. The officers didn't think it was a serious issue, and one of them thought that she was probably having coffee with a friend. One of the officers happened to notice a .22 caliber bullet near the car. It was never determined if the bullet was related to Yosa's disappearance. The officers told Yosa's family to go home and call around to her friends. But no one had seen Margaret Yosa. Days, weeks, and the months went by, and still no one heard from Yosa. Yosa's family was upset with the police investigation, and they believed that they dragged their feet. While Yosa was missing, one of her friends and 2 of her co-workers received disturbing phone calls. The caller said that they were next. The police never figured out who made the calls or if they were associated with Yosa's disappearance. 7 months after Margaret Yosa disappeared, on September 13, 1994, her remains were found in a field in rural Carlsbad, California. After the body was found, the medical examiner's report on her death was sealed by the detectives, so her cause of death was never made public. While Mary Rico and Margaret Yosa were both middle-aged white women who went missing within 22 months of each other, had the same job at the same school, knew each other, lived within a mile of each other, and went to the same grocery store on the last day before they vanished, the police do not think that their cases are connected. Other people think that the coincidences are too incredible for them not to be connected. There was one other strange crime connected to Mission Elementary School where both women worked. On November 28, 1992, nearly 8 months after Mary Rico vanished, and 15 months before Margaret Yosa went missing, Mission Elementary School was set on fire. The fire was mostly contained to one area, and the fire department responded within minutes of the alarm going off. So the school wasn't too severely damaged. Investigators determined that the fire was an act of arson. It's unknown if the fire is connected to the disappearance of Mary Rico and the murder of Margaret Yosa. But other people think that many crimes associated with the school can't just be bad luck or coincidences. The arsonist has never been identified. No one has ever been arrested for the murder of Margaret Yosa. After 29 years, the disappearance of Mary Rico is still unsolved. She's never been found dead or alive. In 1998, the foundation of her former home was searched, but nothing of interest was found. If someone is responsible for Mary Rico's disappearance, they have never been identified. Number 1. Shannon Green and David DeWayne Bell. On July 6, 1986, 16-year-old Shannon Green left her home in Owensboro, Kentucky. She told her mother she was walking to the home of a family friend to babysit, but she supposedly never made it there and she didn't come home. Her mother reported her missing the next day. A few days later, Shannon's mother received an odd phone call. The caller said that Shannon had run off with a boy named DeWayne so that they could get married. The police investigated the call and they thought that the phone call was a disturbing prank, or it was possibly made to mislead the investigators. Shannon did have a friend who went by the name DeWayne. He was 18-year-old David Bell, who went by his middle name, DeWayne. DeWayne loved his bicycle. On July 11th, just 5 days after Shannon vanished, DeWayne's bike was found abandoned in an alley. DeWayne was nowhere to be found. A week later, his mother reported him missing. It turned out that the day before Shannon went missing, she and DeWayne were at the home of a mutual friend. Shannon and DeWayne were not the only young people to go missing in the area during that time. Nearly 3 weeks before Shannon vanished, on June 17, 1986, 23-year-old Mary Ethel Dickens, who went by the name Angie, disappeared from Owensboro. The last time her friend saw her, they had dropped her off after a bar at the motel where she was living in Owensboro. The motel was about half a mile away from Shannon's home. Nearly 5 months after Angie went missing, her remains were found in a cornfield. A cause of death could not be determined. The police had a suspect in all 3 cases. It was a 41-year-old man named John Rainier who had a bad reputation and a serious criminal record. Rainier admitted to a reporter that he had done some horrible things in his life. He said, "I was absolutely no good. I was really bad news. I had hurt a lot of people over the years, and I told you once I'd killed a guy, and you asked me if he was the only one I killed, and I told you yeah, but I thought once is enough. It's too much, really." John Rainier's criminal record dates back to 1966 when he was 19 years old. He was convicted of robbing a grocery store with a knife. He was given a life sentence, but he ended up serving less than 5 years. In 1971, Rainier and an accomplice were arrested for murder. The body of 42-year-old John Branner was found on the property of a coal company near Panther, Kentucky. Around the same time that the body was found, a security guard found 25-year-old Rainier and his friend driving on the property. In August 1972, Rainier was found guilty of murder, and once again, he was given a life sentence. It's unclear when he was released, but he was out of prison by 1985. In November 1985, Rainier was arrested because he was accused of sexually assaulting a woman. He was out on bond in June and July 1986 when Angie, Shannon, and DeWayne went missing. Rainier knew Shannon and DeWayne. The day before Shannon went missing, she and DeWayne were at the house of a mutual friend. That friend was John Rainier. His house was a popular hangout for young people in the area. On the day Shannon went missing, she told her mother that she was going to a home to babysit. She was heading to the home of John Rainier. Rainier worked with DeWayne and DeWayne's father, David Bell, at a construction company. Rainier denied having anything to do with the murder and the disappearances. He did admit that he talked to Shannon on the day she went missing. She asked if she could come over, but he said he wasn't going to be home. He was going to a barbecue at his grandmother's home. The police had no evidence that Rainier was involved in any of the crimes, so he wasn't charged. In August 1986, he was acquitted of the sexual assault. In February 1988, Rainier was found guilty of sexually assaulting another woman. He was sentenced to life in prison with the chance of parole after 10 years. In 2001, after 13 years in prison, he was paroled and he had to register as a sex offender. In November 2004, a detective was investigating the disappearance of Shannon Green and DeWayne Bell and the murder of Angie Dickens. He decided to talk to Rainier, and it turned out Rainier had some shocking evidence for him. Rainier told the detective that he had an audio recording from July 1986 of someone admitting to killing 2 women and a child. He then confessed to hiding their bodies in a cornfield. Rainier claimed that the person confessing to the murders was 18-year-old DeWayne Bell. Rainier explained that shortly after Shannon went missing, DeWayne called him and he said they needed to talk privately. Rainier knew he was a suspect in Shannon's disappearance, so he thought that DeWayne was working with the police and would be wearing a wire. So he set up his own recording device in case the police tampered with the recording to make him look guilty. Rainier then played the audio recording for the detective. On the recording, DeWayne says that he needs money to get out of town because he killed 2 women and a child. Rainier said that the day after the recording, he made DeWayne take him to the bodies. First, DeWayne took him to a cornfield and then dug up some dirt. Rainier saw part of a body. DeWayne told him it was the body of Shannon Green. DeWayne said that Shannon had come over to his house. They got into an argument and it turned physical. DeWayne said that his father, David, held Shannon down and then he choked her to death. Then they buried the body together. Next, DeWayne took Rainier to another cornfield that was a couple miles away. He showed Rainier Angie's body. He said that they had come to the cornfield to fool around. Things got out of hand and he ended up murdering her. Rainier asked DeWayne about the kid he claimed to have murdered. DeWayne pointed to a ditch near the cornfield. He said that he killed a mother and her child and they were from Tennessee. Rainier never learned their names, nor did he see if their bodies were actually there. DeWayne said that he had called the police to confess. It turned out that on July 6, 1986, the night of Shannon's disappearance, an anonymous person called the police department. He said, "I done killed 2 or 3. Better stop me before I kill more." On July 11th, Rainier confronted DeWayne's father, David, about what he knew. He also played the taped confession. Later that same day, DeWayne disappeared. Although DeWayne worked with his father and saw him daily, his father didn't report him missing. Instead, his mother reported him missing a week after he was last seen. Rainier admitted that he planned on killing DeWayne and David for killing Shannon, but he never got the chance. A few weeks after DeWayne vanished, his father and his 20-year-old girlfriend moved to Tucson, Arizona. John Rainier has been adamant he had nothing to do with Shannon and DeWayne's disappearances. He took a polygraph exam regarding the disappearances, and he passed. DeWayne's father, David Bell, initially agreed to take a polygraph exam. But then, the day after agreeing to take a polygraph exam, his lawyer said he wouldn't be taking one. David has also refused to talk to investigators regarding his son's disappearance. David has talked to a reporter, and he denied being involved in the disappearances of his son and Shannon Green. Several of DeWayne's relatives have heard the confession tape, and they confirmed it was DeWayne's voice. Shannon Green's remains have never been found. The police looked in the field where Rainier said Shannon was buried, but they found nothing. The police believe that her body was possibly moved after DeWayne showed Rainier where she was buried. The bodies of the woman from Tennessee and her child have never been found, and they have never been identified. It's not known if they were real. DeWayne Bell has never been found dead or alive. Some people suspected he moved to Tucson with his father, but no evidence has been found to back that up. DeWayne is considered a suspect in the murders of Angie Dickens and the disappearance of Shannon Green. If David DeWayne Bell is alive today, he would be 53 years old. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Don't forget to check out the latest episode of Into the Killing. You can find it on Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and anywhere you find great podcasts. But that's all for today. Thanks again for watching.